Hello, welcome back to my car cave. I'm excited today. I finally got some 1/18 scale to talk about. We've been talking about a lot of 1/2 scale models or helmets recently. So I do have a brand new 1/18 scale model to share with you guys. Even more exciting to me is that this is a 2022 Alpine F1 car. So I'm excited because it's the new shape, the new design of cars. It's still 2022. There's 4 races left in the season, I believe. Max just won the title last weekend. It's not often that we get cars in season, so that's totally unique for me. Exciting for me to be able to have a car that is still currently racing. Now this is the early edition Spark, so this will be the pink livery of the Alpine that they use in the first 2 races. I think this is the Bahrain example. Also with Spark, if you're familiar with them, the box is totally new. So I'm not sure if this is going to be standard for their F1. This is interesting. It's a clamshell type box. It's clear now that they're offering an acrylic cover for their cars. Not sure that that's something I want to pay for necessarily, but I do like the size. The fact the box is smaller. Sparks always drove me crazy with their giant boxes, and you have to store all that kind of stuff. So, anyways, let's go ahead and open this up, and then we'll look at it in detail and talk more about the car and the model. Okay, now we've got the car unpacked. Let's go ahead and take a look at it up close. First off, I just want to say again, new for this year for Spark are these acrylic covers that now come on the car with the model. Something really reserved for higher priced models such as BBR or MR. Nice to have if you don't have a closed dust-free display case. I'm fortunate that I do, so I don't really have a need for it, but it's a nice added bonus for those of you collecting and either run out of space, which could be my problem very soon, needing to display your cars outside of an otherwise closed cased environment. You still get the traditional base with these models listing or highlighting the particular race or event the car is from. In this case, this was from the Bahrain GP of 2022, which Alonso finished 9th that particular race. I think for a 2-time world champion, I don't know that he would care to acknowledge his 9th place finish, but I guess Spark felt compelled to put that on the base nonetheless. So let's go ahead and look at this model up close. Again, I think it's great to have a 2022 car available for us to look at in season. That's kind of a rare thing in the die-cast collecting world. Some of that's my own doing. I tend to buy cars for particular races and helmet variations or whatnot, so I don't even have a Max 2021 World Champion car yet because I'm waiting for a specific one, even though that's been out for quite some time. So that said, it's again, neat to have a 2022 car to look at. This is the first time I'm really getting to see one of these kind of up close. I've not been to a race this year. I did see a display model at an event, but again, not getting up close and personal the way I can with a 1/18 scale. So that said, this is exciting. I think the car looks fantastic. I like the pink livery. This is a kind of a one-off or two-off, if you will. They ran it for 2 races at the beginning of the season, I believe, Bahrain and Qatar, if I'm not mistaken. And then they went to the more traditional Alpine livery with the blue and French flag colors or highlights, along with some pink as well for the BWT sponsorship. I think I will probably get that model eventually. I think that's the one I would prefer to have in my collection long term. And I think Mini Champs will make it as well, so I might just get that in a different manufacturer just so I can see the comparison in quality. But the Spark is actually really good. I think in a previous video I had alluded to the Spark's quality kind of gone down, but I think this one maybe it's kind of making a comeback. I think it's never been bad, but Mini Champs had I think the last few years, or because made by BBR, had a little bit better quality than the Spark ones, and a higher price too. So looking at the 2022 cars, what we now know is different is we have these larger rear and front wheels. We have the new wheel discs that are manufactured and supplied by Red Bull for all the teams. The most drastic change is probably this new aero floor that is back in play. It reminds me of, say, the late 70s, like the Lotus 78 car, and obviously all the way up through most of the 80s. These just really ground effect floors that were simple. I say they're simple. The ask the engineer is probably not, but yeah, simplified relative to what we've been seeing the last few seasons, with these giant diffusers on the back that are just kind of emptied out, free of all these extra winglets that we were used to seeing. We have these new standardized kind of rear wings. Now people have obviously started to play with them. They're starting to look different from team to team, which is one of the things I always loved about F1. I think it's got these cutouts on the floorboard, which is kind of unique. And huge cutout here, which are really kind of cool. It's probably exaggerated a bit because the floorboards now come all the way up here relative to the 2021 cars. These newer, bigger front wings, and definitely much larger, higher end plates. And what else? So looking at, if you're not familiar with Spark's driver figures, the visor here, which probably does not show up on the camera, is actually transparent, and there's a figure inside of the helmet. So it's fairly realistic looking. It's a good size, good shape, and so I think that's kind of a unique difference. And if I see it correctly, yeah, there's actually an clear aero chin spoiler on the bottom of Alonso's helmet, which I had not even noticed until just now, seeing it reflecting in the light. Again, I don't think you can see it on camera, but just hyper realism from Spark. I really think they've done a great job. They have the fabric seat belts with the photo etch belt and belt loops and things like that. Really, really great. This is just a neat model. I'm really excited about it, and yeah, I can't have enough good things to say about it, to be honest. So anyways, let's put it down, and I actually have a 2021 car to compare with, so let's go ahead and get that out, and we'll show you what those two look like side by side. Okay, so now I thought it would be nice to show you a comparison between the 2021 Alpine and the current year 2022 Alpine. Both these cars are Alonso Fernando cars, as you can see by the number 14, and if you're familiar with his helmet design, you can notice that right away as well. Well, let's talk about the difference of these cars, kind of starting up front maybe. Here you can see a much more exaggerated delta wing on the front of these cars versus previous seasons. They did have a delta wing, but not quite as exaggerated as you see here. Moving backwards, you kind of get an idea of the wheel size here, much larger on the 2022 cars versus the 2021. Some of that might be just because Solido and Spark, their scaling is different, but in real life they are different as well. You also have the wheel flares, or eyebrows as they're sometimes referred to, that are mandatory this year, not on the 2021 cars. Moving a little bit further back, there's a lot of this aero work that has been done over the previous seasons that was getting, frankly, out of control for many of the viewers, in our opinions, but a lot of engineering and a lot of money spent in this region of the car directing the airflow. That's all been done away with, and now it's an empty void with pretty much just these side fenders here, splitters here, kind of directing the wind underneath the car, as these are now ground effects cars versus wing aero generating cars. And moving further back, the older car, the 2021, has this more traditional Coke bottle style. You can see that's still inside of these cars at the base, but due to the new regulations, the side pods have to stick out much further, so it's a much wider looking car, aesthetically wise, which is one of their motives for making the changes. I do think it looks better to have a side pod that is virtually the same size as the floor. These got to be so long and narrow relative to the floor. It just, I don't know, it just didn't look appealing to me. So anyways, I'm also a proponent of having shorter cars as well. These cars are absurdly large in size. Then moving backwards, Alpine was, before was Renault, and both in the Renault car and that carried over the Alpine was this kind of bulbous, fat-bodied air intake. Still prevalent on the 2022 car, particularly relative to other teams, but not compared to the previous 2 years under Renault and Alpine. I like it. It's different. I appreciate when these cars have some kind of difference to them that when on display, I can see that, because the average person thinks they all look the same. But yeah, so just something unique to the Alpine cars in particular. This has a nice cutaway down here that is probably race specific, and it reminds me of kind of the old McLarens from, I think, around 2010 or so, that had these cutaways back there. And then moving back to the wing, have this kind of standardized wing, whereas the old wings are kind of more the square, rectangular, hard edges. This is now more of a swooping, rounded, flowing design, which I appreciate. And then you can see these cutouts here that are kind of unique to this particular car, whereas last year you had this new taper, but really it was just kind of a flat floor plate. So let me put this on the side and see if that will help reveal any other unique differences that you might want to see. I don't know how that looks. Hopefully it's sufficient. Largely, you see the end plates here, much larger triangular piece, whereas the old last Infinite years kind of this rectangular piece. You have the wheel covers, as I mentioned before, made by Red Bull. Then this is that kind of aero mess that has been prevalent on cars for the last decade. Now that's totally gone, and you just have this nice clean cutaway, all the air being directed underneath. The middle section is very similar, other than obviously this is much more cut into the car. These are wider, kind of flat on the side, as it's fitting into the new design box requirements that are called out by F1. And then the rear wings, like I said, they're much more angular before. Now they're kind of this fluid, sculpted design that's, I think, visually more attractive. And in some cars, particularly Aston Martin, have kind of found ways to work around the regulations and make some differences. But anyways, yeah, just a nice car overall. I appreciate the 2021 design, but I like the 2022 design now that I see it for what for me is really kind of in person. Hopefully I'll get to see it in a race at some point, maybe next year. But yeah, hope you like the discussion. Hope you like the comparison. Let's go ahead and do what we always do. Let's put the 2022 on the rotating table and allow you to look at it in peace and quiet and not have to hear me ramble on about it. Anyways, thanks for watching. As always, click and subscribe, and look forward to making another video soon.